All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Ruwell. Peace and citation to the elect, the house of David in the ancient Hebrew that's pronounced Bayat Wadah. And those are those men that's kicking this word in sincerity and in truth. And also, peace to those few sisters that are out there that actually believe in the doctrine, in the name, and despite what other people try to say about us, that believe pretty much on Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. All right, because again, there's a few of those out there as well. But what I wanted to do in this lesson, I didn't want to make it fast or nothing like that, but of course, it's how the Spirit rolls. But I want to go into a few scriptures just defending the validity of the Apocrypha, because this is something that Brother Ariel and myself, we was talking about it last night. And there's certain precepts, there's numerous actually, but there was one precept that had stood out to us and made us have a side conversation just going into the Apocrypha and how it's spoken of in the scriptures. Okay, now you have a lot of naysayers that's out here that try to say the Apocrypha is not real, that's why they took it out of the Bible, so forth. But if you're inspired by the Spirit of Yahushua is dealing with you, and once you actually read these accounts that actually took place in history, you can clearly see, without a doubt, that the Apocrypha goes hand in hand with these Holy Scriptures, because it is part of the Holy Scriptures. Okay? It was placed there for a reason. It was written by ancient scribes, ancient prophets for a reason. And they line up perfectly with the Scriptures that's given to us today. That's why in that King James 1611 version, the Apocrypha's in it. That's why when you read the Geneva Bible, which came out before the King James version, the Apocrypha's in it, and so forth. You can't get away from it. These scriptures are real. All right. But again, you have to be inspired by the Holy Spirit to have the true understanding and really just believe that. And you have to toil and read in order to research these things out. And that's when you'll understand and you'll find precepts that'll match up, pinpoint to what the Apocrypha is saying. Because again, they go hand in hand. And why do they go hand in hand? Because they were all inspired by the Holy Spirit. This is part of the word. This is part of the doctrine. Okay. Now there's a scripture that I want to start off on, and it's in Baruch, the first chapter, the 15th verse, and it reads, and this is in the Apocrypha. Okay. And ye shall say to the Lord, our power belongeth righteousness, but unto us the confusion of faces, as it is come to pass this day unto them of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Now, where else can you find this at? Okay, this has to be written somewhere. Who is Baruch, first and foremost? All right, and for those that don't know, Baruch was a scribe of Jeremiah. All right, and just for confirmation on that, this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 36, verse 4. And it reads, then Jeremiah called Baruch, the son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote, because he was a scribe, from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the Lord, which he had spoken unto him upon a roll of a book. Okay, so Baruch was a scribe of Jeremiah. So what we just read here in Baruch, book of Baruch, this is really something that was worded through Jeremiah. Okay, and he just wrote it down. And it's really, really, really important, especially where you get the confusion of faces from, just because that goes into really the Gentiles, and also too how we was gonna look when I say the Gentiles, I mean the Israelite foreigners, okay, and how they were gonna look. They might look like these other nations, but also too how we were gonna look when we seen these Israelites that look like other nations getting grafted in, and that was really part of the curse. Confusion of faces, and also that really fulfilled so much prophecy. All right, that's really even where you get Romans the 10th chapter, where it talked about faith come by hearing, and that comes from hearing the word of the Most High. And then he broke it down what Isaiah was talking about, that he shall bring those people in that aren't a people. All right, and that even goes into Moses, what Moses said as well. All right, but this was stated here in the Apocrypha, and it was validated here in Jeremiah 36, and that shows you who Baruch really is and that he was a scribe of Jeremiah. Okay. Now, which prophet wrote a lot about Jeremiah and spoke about him? We got the prophet Daniel. Okay. So when you read this here in Daniel 9:25, and I want to go somewhere up really quick. Salaki. I just want to read Salaki, give me one sec. Okay, well, it's all good. I just jump straight to the point. Don't want to make it too long. But when you go to Jeremiah chapter 9, I'll start at verse 7. All right. And it says, O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces. Okay, and where did we just read that at? That was in Baruch, the first chapter. Okay, now Baruch was the scribe of Jeremiah. All right, Jeremiah's time was before Daniel's time. Jeremiah prophesied before Daniel did. Daniel wrote about Jeremiah quite a bit. All right, so this isn't nothing new that's in the scriptures. What Daniel's doing, and when you read it again, I'm going to read it. It says, and ye shall say to the Lord, our power belongeth righteousness, but unto us confusion of faces, as it is come to pass this day unto them of Judah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. All right. When you read this here, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to explain. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces, as at this day to the men of Judah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Where did we just read that at? And is that not worded the same exact way as it is in the Apocrypha? Baruch wrote this before Daniel spoke about it. Daniel spoke about this just because Jeremiah spoke about this. And Jeremiah prophesied before Daniel did. Matter of fact, I think I can remember it now. Let me see here. I'm just going to type in the word books really quick. Bear with me one sec, Baba Kashaw. Let me write a book. Bear with me. Started Nehemiah, Hebrews. Oh, hold on, I'm tripping. Bear with me, Baba Kashaw. So I'm going to read this really quick. All right. And this is from Daniel 9:2. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years wherefore the word of the Lord came to Jerusalem, came to Jeremiah, the prophet. Okay. So Daniel understood by books wherefore the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. That shows you Jeremiah was before him. And who was the one that wrote the word or the letters or the epistles from Jeremiah? It was Baruch. It said that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. Okay, so that was the one I was looking for. Okay, so when you jump back to Daniel 9, where I left off at, you understand where Daniel was coming at when he had pretty much rewritten which was spoken of Jeremiah. Okay? And it says, unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. All right? So that's a point there which shows you the validity of the Apocrypha, because you have the book Baruch in the Apocrypha, which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, and you had Daniel reciting that same exact verse that was written in the book of Baruch, the first chapter, the 15th verse. And we already explained to you who Baruch is, because Baruch's written of. And again, I'll read it one more time. Then Jeremiah called Baruch, the son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the Lord, which he had spoken unto him upon a roll of a book. Okay? And again, as you read in Daniel chapter 9, verse 2, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years wherefore the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he had accomplished 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Okay? Now, this is another point, and this is what the brother Ariala and myself was speaking of in camp yesterday. All right. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 9, verse 1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest parts of signs past, which I have told thee before, thou shalt understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he had made. All right. And when you continue, it says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that which were before thee, even from the beginning. So when you read that in the 4th verse, it clearly tells you that this was something that was written even before. All right, and it's something that stays in effect to this day. Now this is in the Apocrypha, and when you jump to verse 3, it tells you, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people. All right, and that's what we're seeing right now. There was an earthquake that just hit Mexico yesterday. All right. I'm talking about, I believe it was like an 8.0 to 8.4, and the death toll is still rising. And then that triggered in a tsunami because it was right off the coast of western Mexico. All right. You see earthquakes happening all over the place. Yellowstone Park, there has been a record of seismic activity going on around there, and that's supposed to be the world's biggest super volcano. And that was supposed to be due hundreds of years ago. So you see the Heavenly Father preserving it to the time appointed. You also see uproars of the people. You have the whole DACA issue going on, which Donald Trump took away, and now these other nations that live over here are complaining. You got these statues of these Southern Confederates that pretty much were for slavery. Even all these Edomites were for slavery, but they're taking these statues down, and you see these Confederates uproaring, getting mad. Okay, you got Black Lives Matter. They're arguing and complaining with the KKK, and they're getting in a battle formation right now. You see nation rising against nation. Now, where does that sound familiar at? I'm talking about to the T. It dang near says the exact same thing. You can find this here in the New Testament. And who spoke of this? Our Lord Yahushua. So when he had spoke this, of course, he's the Word. And really, when Ezra wrote this, when the angel had given Ezra this vision, that was inspired by the Spirit of Yahushua. But when Yahushua was here in the flesh, when he had spoken this prophecy, he was speaking on something that was written back then. Now, when you go to the blue letter and you type in earthquakes, because, Ezra is an Old Testament prophet. But when you type in earthquakes, what do you know? You see Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Okay? So I'm going to go to Luke 21 and 11. And it says, and great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, in famines, in pestilences, in fearful sights, in great signs shall there be from heaven. And what are we bearing witness to right now? The eclipse just happened. Right after that eclipse happened, everything's falling apart. Earthquakes, one half of America is underwater, the other half is under fire, and tremors are right in the middle of it. Okay? And let me see here. Really, I want to jump to verse 9 in Luke 21. And it says, but when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then said he unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. So when you read this, again, we looked up the word earthquakes, and the only scriptures that popped up were the ones in the New Testament. So when Yahushua wrote this on the account of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because they wrote this down, Yahushua was referring back to what the prophet Ezra had said from the 9th chapter. Then shall the verse 3, they're 9 and 3, Ezra. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. Uproars of the people in the world are nation against nation. Okay? Because where you get that word nation from, that word there is ethnos in the Greek, and that goes to nationalities. And we're seeing uproars of the people. All right? So that's another small point showing you that the Holy Bible and the Apocrypha go hand in hand with one another. because they complement one another. Okay, and there's just one more point I want to bring out, and I'm going to read this really quick in John the 10th chapter, and I'm going to start at the 22nd verse. And this is really a key point, man, because this is still a holy day that Israel follows, man. All right, and it's not written too much in the modern Bible, which people perceive as just being the complete package, because they don't understand the Apocrypha, which it is almost a complete package, but you got the complete package when you throw the Apocrypha in there. All right. But for these people that go to church so-called every Sunday and so forth, a lot of them don't know what the Apocrypha is. All right. And they'll read this here in John, what I'm about to read, and they won't be able to tell you where this originates. And even if you got so-called Edomites or scholars that do know what the Feast of Dedication is, where can you find it at? In the Apocrypha. Okay, so I'm going to read John 10 and 22, and it reads, and it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication, and it was winter. And Yahushua walked in the temple of Solomon's porch. Now, where can you read about the Feast of Dedication? Because again, I'm going to type this in here in the blue letter. And there's only two scriptures that show up. The first one is 2 Chronicles 7 and 9. And in the 8th day they made a solemn assembly, for they kept the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. Okay, so here's another one in John 10 and 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication, and it was winter. Now, for all you people that want to talk about, this is referring to 2 Chronicles 7 and 9, you got to understand when this had taken place, where it had came from, because when you really do your research on this, and I really want to pull this word up, I'm really interested to see what this says right here. All right. So you read the Feast of Dedication. Just interested to see what this says here. In particular, the annual feast celebrated 8 days, beginning in the 25th of, it says Shislev, but it'll say Caselu, all right, middle of our December, which really is, honestly, it's before that, because that's when you really just go into the biblical month, the lunar month, all right, the biblical years, instituted by Judas Maccabees. So that shows you it's not going into what we read here in 2 Chronicles, okay? No, it's going into Judas Maccabees, and where you can read about him from. You can read him in the Apocrypha, okay? But I'm going to continue really quick. Instituted by Judas Maccabees in 164 BC in memory of the cleansing of the temple from the pollution of Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, you can't read this in the modern Bible that they give us, the one without the Apocrypha, but this is in here. Okay, so where can you find this at? Where can you find this at? Because Yahushua celebrated the Feast of Dedication. This was written in the book of John. All right, you can read this in 1 Maccabees, the 4th chapter, and I'm going to start at the 54th verse, and it says, "Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it," and it's talking about how they profaned our temple, and that was when the Grecians had taken power, the Edomites, all right, when a so-called white man had grasped power of the planet Earth. And what they've done, and one of the first moves that they've made was, they made plenty of moves, but one of the biggest moves, I should say, that they've made is when they went into our land and profaned our Sabbaths, stopped us from following our high holy days, all right, offered up swine's flesh, and they had Jake doing it. They had our women in bad conditions, looking bad, terrible. And I mean bad meaning bad, not bad meaning good. Word to consequence. And if you don't know what that is, he's just a rapper that said that. But this is going into when the so-called white men had taken power. And when they had tried to wipe our people clean. When they pushed that Hellenistic vibe across the planet Earth. All right. And it says, look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that, was it dedicated with song. So this is when we were getting all of that back. When Judas Maccabees led what you would consider as being the Maccabean revolt. When we revolted against Edom and we had taken back, which was taken from us. Okay, and afterward, when we were rebuilding the temple, we dedicated it with songs and cisterns and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell on their faces, worshiping and praising the God of heaven, who had given them good success. And they decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates in the chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. And of course, we're still under reproach of the heathen, but that was around that time when Edom was had pretty much desolated us. All right, and we had gotten that back because the spirit was on Judas. Oh, really, the spirit was on his father Matthias. And pretty much when you read this in Maccabees, it went on to Judas and then Simon and his other brothers after Judas had died. Okay. But Judas was the forefront of this revolt, all right, spoken of by his father Matthias, okay? In verse 59 says, moreover, Judas, and again, what do we read about Judas from? When you go into the Feast of Dedication, all right, it literally says, beginning in the 25th of Caslu, middle of December, instituted by Judas, all right? And when you read this in the Bible, it's not talking about Judas Iscariot. It's talking about Judas Maccabees, okay? And again, it says, moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year, by the space of 8 days. Just like what we read over here back in the blue letter, when you go to Feast of Dedication, it says, in particular, the annual feast. Annual means yearly. Feast celebrated 8 days. All right. So I'm going to continue. It says, kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 5 and 20th day of the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness. In that time also they built up the Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles, and this key part of the Gentiles rules, namely the Edomites, because they were the head honchos in charge around that time, ruling the world, should come and tread it down as they have done before. All right, and they set their garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea, who is Edom. All right, so that's really an important high holy day, because you don't read it, and this also shows you how spiritual this is, because you don't read about the Feast of Dedication in the law. Not this one here, not Hanukkah, which they call Hanukkah. No, man. Around this time, this is when Edom was trying to take us down. And it shows that this was a high holy day that was pretty much brought up through the spirit. All right. And Edom is still trying to tread us down, man. All right. But I don't want to digress. But I just wanted to pull up a few scriptures just to show you the validity of the Apocrypha and how that ties into the scriptures that we have today. And what shows us that the Apocrypha and the Bible go hand in hand together, because the Apocrypha is part of the Bible. And you can read these accounts in the Apocrypha just like you can read them in the scriptures. All right. And, you know, there's more where that came from. But Lord willing, this was edifying. This is really inspired through the spirit. Just thought about it this morning as I woke up, just meditated for a little bit. But just wanted to, just bring this out. Again, Lord, when this is edifying, I want to give all praise to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. I want to give double honors to our apostles and our elders of Great Millstone that rule well. And peace and salutations and many blessings to the elect Akim, the house of David, and the ancient Hebrew that's pronounced by Yah Dawadah. And those are the men that's kicking this word of sincerity and truth. Shalom.